Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, is quietly destroying Donald Trump, and his MAGA supporters know it. If you look at what happened between Washington and Ottawa overnight, it doesn't look like a negotiation. It doesn't look like a compromise. It looks like a declaration of war. Not with missiles, not with soldiers, with money.
And so, Kate, we've heard a lot of threats from Donald Trump aimed at Canada. What's the sense of how to evaluate this one?
It's a good question.
For decades, the United States and Canada shared the most integrated economy on the planet. Two nations, one machine, seamless, efficient, quiet. But as of this morning, that machine is on fire. Donald Trump didn't just impose tariffs. He went further than anyone expected. He signed an executive order invoking emergency economic powers against Canada, the country that has fought beside America in every major conflict since World War I, the country that took in stranded American passengers on September 11th, the country that shares the most complex supply chain relationship in the history of global commerce. He called them a national security threat. And Mark Carney's response: he didn't protest, he didn't beg, he didn't pick up the phone, he picked up a pen, and what he signed in the last 12 hours is going to reshape the global economy for a generation. The shockwaves are already rippling through Wall Street, through European markets, through energy futures, and straight into your bank account. Trump is raging, Congress is panicking, and most of the media is still talking about the wrong story. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Carney just did, why the White House never saw it coming, and why the world you wake up in tomorrow is fundamentally different from the one you went to sleep in last night. So let's rewind the clock 72 hours and trace exactly how we got here. It started with silence, and that silence should have been a warning. After the initial tariff standoff, the one where Carney publicly rejected Trump's ultimatum, the world expected fireworks. Cable news was camped outside the Canadian embassy. Reporters were refreshing Truth Social every 30 seconds. Everyone was waiting for the next explosion, but nothing happened. For 3 full days, Ottawa went dark. No press conferences, no leaks, no statements. The Prime Minister's office said only that Canada is evaluating all available options. In Washington, they took the silence as surrender. Fox News ran a chyron that said, "Canada folds under pressure." Trump posted a victory lap on Truth Social at midnight, calling Carney a failed banker who learned his lesson. Senior White House officials briefed reporters that Canada had reached out privately to negotiate. That was a lie. Canada hadn't called anyone. They were building something, and nobody in Washington understood what it was until it was too late. At 6 a.m. Eastern yesterday morning, before the markets opened, before Trump had his first Diet Coke, Mark Carney held a press conference, not in Ottawa, but in Brussels, standing next to the President of the European Commission, with the Prime Minister of Japan appearing live on a screen behind them. Carney announced 3 things simultaneously. Each one hit Washington like a freight train. First, the Canada-EU Emergency Economic Partnership. Not a trade deal, not a memorandum, a full emergency partnership with fast-tracked regulatory alignment and preferential market access. Canadian manufacturers, farmers, and energy producers suddenly had a backdoor into Europe. If the US didn't want Canadian goods, Europe did. Markets reacted immediately. Currencies moved sharply. European energy stocks surged. Canadian oil sands companies jumped nearly 9% before lunch. Then came the second announcement, the Pacific Corridor Energy Accord. Canada fast-tracked energy export agreements with Japan and South Korea, redirecting LNG and heavy crude across the Pacific. Pipelines and ports on the British Columbia coast would be accelerated using emergency powers, bypassing environmental reviews that had stalled projects for a decade. Carney bulldozed regulation not out of ideology, but out of strategy. Canada would no longer be a captive supplier. The US energy system, built around Canadian crude, suddenly looked vulnerable. Refinery stocks plunged. Wall Street panicked. The third announcement was the shocker, a digital and AI alliance with the EU, the UK, Japan, and Australia. Shared standards, shared frameworks, shared tech rules, and the United States was explicitly excluded. 5 major economies just formed a technology bloc without America. Markets immediately repriced tech dominance. The Nasdaq dropped hard. Major U.S. tech firms took heavy losses. Not because of bad earnings, because dominance was no longer guaranteed. Inside the White House, chaos followed. Some advisors wanted economic war. Others wanted immediate de-escalation. Trump chose neither. He doubled down, posting threats, insults, and sanctions talk. But he didn't negotiate, and the world noticed. Carney's strategy was simple and brutal. Don't fight the U.S. directly. Make it optional. Build alternate networks. Reroute trade. Create new alliances. Once those exist, leverage disappears permanently. And that's what terrified markets. The consequences are already real. Auto supply chains under threat. Energy costs becoming unpredictable. Tech companies facing regulatory fragmentation. Retirement accounts absorbing volatility. Beyond economics, trust is breaking. When America treats its closest ally like an adversary, every other nation takes notes. Alliances are recalculating in real time. 2 paths remain. 1. De-escalation and stabilization. 2. Retaliation, fragmentation, and global economic fracture. No middle ground, no easy reset. One thing is certain. The U.S.-Canada relationship will never be the same. Even if this ends tomorrow, the trust is gone, and Canada has proven it has options. Carney didn't just respond to Trump. He showed the world how smaller nations can counter larger ones, with finance, networks, and timing instead of weapons. The question now is whether Washington learns, or doubles down. Don't forget to subscribe to Minority Media and like this video.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations reasserting itself. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't.
Along with friends on both sides of the border. He recalls them shaking hands when the 2 spans connected.
I thought that was pretty cool to see. That was unity. I really liked that unity. Don't know why that needs to be eroded at this point.